Okay, I think we are now live. Finally.
No way.
Uh,
Let me check.
that would be helpful.
Max Geng.
Take a look.
There's a stream. Let me check if it's this one. It's like it just started.
Yeah, and all the
Oh, we're
things I
good.
wrote on Twitter and that to send are not I got deleted when I had to restart. Welcome to the show, Andrew. Why
Thank
don't
you.
you tell me about what you've been up to while I send out these tweets and whatnot?
I just posted a video about how to get into game development. It's a really good video, and it's doing okay.
Yeah, I mentioned I like the thumbnail for it.
Oh yeah, and I was gonna tell you. I'll say it on the stream, I guess. Actually, so one thing that you can do for thumbnails is you look at similar niches, like not even necessarily the same niche, like game development. Might look at, for example, growth on YouTube, which isn't all that different from game development in the sense of like they both are a technical skill, they're both creative, they're both about like growth and marketing and stuff like that. There's some commonality, so the thumbnails might have some potential for correlation. And basically, I took two thumbnail ideas from two YouTuber channels, and I put them together, and I made the monstrosity that that is the current thumbnail.
Okay, cool. I've sent out tweets and whatnot. Though before we start, we do have to talk about something. Because Andrew, you are in fact
Yes.
a big fan of EFAP. Is that not true?
I would say so. I quite like it.
Well, I don't know if you've heard, but there's been a bit of a kerfuffle on the Dumb Bird app regarding Mahler and someone named Xander Hall.
The Dumb Bird app, yes.
And the basic TLDR, if I'm remembering correctly, it was like a week or two ago, was Xander said that Mahler was like a right-wing hack who uses media to espouse right-wing ideas. That was the crux of the claim. And he has super extremist views, something like that. And Mahler claims that that's not true, and he has evidence that it's not true, just because Xander Hall can't find one single instance of him doing that.
Well, I think he mentioned like, oh, but you have these people and those people on your stream.
Yeah, but he can't find a single instance of Mahler specifically doing that.
But his issue was with Mueller having those people on, right?
What?
Which means that if Mueller has those people as his friends, then Mueller is also a right wing, and whether that is the case or not, he has right wing people on his stream, and they'll be saying right wing stuff, which, by the way, is fine. It's completely fine.
Right, but this is Mott and Bailey. Xander Hall's claim was that he specifically was right wing and was using media criticism and critique and commentary as a vehicle in which to like indoctrinate people, which is a very different claim than some people are right wing on your show. But whether or not that's true or not is not actually important to this conversation. What is important to this conversation is that Xander Hall challenged Mahler to debate him on it, and he didn't get a response back. And so he said, clearly what has happened here is that Mahler is scared to debate him, and he's scared to leave Twitter and debate him, which I completely agree with Xander Hall, Andrew. The only conceivable reason you would ever not go on someone else's show after they insult you, or someone else would not go on your show after you insult them, is because they're scared. I see no other possible reason, and I assume you completely agree with this.
Well, there is no other possible reason.
Which is very odd, because I tweeted at him that I think he's a dishonest hack and should come on our show so I can tell him to his face.
And he hasn't come on the show.
He has not responded. So the only possible conclusion that we can reach is that Xander Hall is afraid to come on our show. This is the only show on the internet Xander Hall's afraid to come on. We're rebranding it, putting it in the tagline until someday when he comes on. Because remember, as he says, the only possible reason he could have for not coming on this show is that he's scared. Also, this just in, Mueller did agree to debate him and talk to him, but his condition was it had to be on neutral ground and was going to go on Adam and Sitch. And Xander said no, and we can only conclude from that his unwillingness to go on that show must mean he's scared. So what we've learned here today is Xander Hall, big beta energy. But that's not why
we're so simple.
It's great if you can just divide everything into black and white. Thinking gets so much easier. You can thunk real good like.
Oh, that's already hard. Just keep it as at just one color at a time.
Yeah, I've just noticed I moved our icons for the video because we've just done a review of Spirited Away. That is now in the works. We don't know when it will be released. I banged out the last one fairly quickly, but stuff's getting busy on my end, so it might take a while. Sea Beast is the much longer time taking one, as everyone's probably aware. But we'll let you know updates as they happen. In the meantime, I'm Max Geng. This is Andrzej Gieralt. And we're here on the only show on the internet Xander Hall's afraid of to watch some good old Arcane. Are you ready, Andrew?
Yeah, take that.
That's going to be the new intro.
We're owning the libs.
This is going to be our new intro from now on. And welcome to the only media show Xander Hall's afraid to come on. I'm keeping it.
Yeah. I don't have I don't know this. I'm guessing he's like a YouTuber or streamer or something. I don't know at all. I don't have any concern with him. But take that, Xander Hall.
He's like a left wing, bred to be. I think he's an Asan orbiter, which is.
No.
Imagine being Asan, and then even worse, imagine being one of his orbiters.
I can't imagine that. It's not even in my frame of comprehensive appreciarity.
I only know him because he says dumb shit. But yeah. So, Arcane, episode 6, part 2. You remember where we left off in the first episode? Or not the first episode, the first part of this episode.
I don't remember where we specifically left off, but I probably remember a good chunk of the episode. In which case, if I were to summarize it, I would land on the halfway point at some point.
Yeah, so I think we just
I feel like it was I know we talked about them jumping down the tower area into the cavern.
Yeah.
I feel like that's just a bit right around where we were at.
We're in the cavern now. I think we did Silco going to Marcus's house.
Yes, we definitely did that for sure.
Yeah, hold on. I want to switch to switching to different feed. I was recording the watch together. It's recording the actual Netflix now. Just makes my life a bit easier. Okay, so I think the last thing that happened. If I minimize this and take a look. Right, so Silco was at the house. Then we cut to Victor and Jace, and they're talking to what's his face, Heimerdinger. And Heimerdinger's it's changing you. You must destroy it. You must throw the hex deck into the fire, Frodo. Then we have Caitlyn and Vi, and Vi has the hallucinations, and Caitlyn says, "You got a good heart," and they're in lots of gay love, and Caitlyn is now going and leaving to find a cure to stab wounds. Take 3 pills a day, and we'll cure your stab wounds. But okay. You ready on your end?
Yeah.
All right. Oh, can you check to make sure? It probably won't. Actually, I can check it on my end. So here's a question. Did you remember? I have subtitles on. Let me off. Do you remember when he showed up? When you first went through this, did you remember who this guy was?
Yeah, I did.
I did too. I've noticed that some people don't notice it when they watch it the first time around.
Mm.
To be fair, I watched it all in one sitting, so maybe that's why. But I feel like the character design is on point enough and is similar enough to the original one that it's pretty easy to get who he is very quickly, especially because all the mannerisms are the same as well. But yeah, how do we feel about this reveal? This character we used to know shows up looking like this.
Well, it's a really strong contrast and kind of like shock, like a punchy like. Oh, by the way, in case you were wondering, this is the end game of Shimmer. It's not a not good times at all.
Drugs are bad, okay? Don't do drugs.
It's true. This is a true thing.
Unless you're in cyberpunk.
No.
Well, in cyberpunk, you actually have to take drugs, or else you'll go cyber psycho and kill everyone. But speaking of which, I've seen Cyberpunk Edgerunners. We might do that show after this one. We probably won't, but there is one that would be one of the contenders. Caitlyn, staunch supporter of the Second Amendment.
Oh, based. So I just realized I don't actually I can't hear the audio and watch together, but it's not a big deal because I can generally I know well enough what's happening.
Okay. I think it's doing that weird thing it does sometimes. Remember when this sorts of had issues and you can't hear anything and we have to fiddle around for half an hour so I can remember what fucking control it was? I can take a quick look and see if I yeah, my volume's grayed out too. I can never remember how to fix this. So if you're cool leaving it, we should probably just continue with the show then. Though I do feel bad. Do you want to take a second to like open it on your end so we can watch it, so you can hear while we watch, or do you want me to just play it?
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay, I'm gonna. Just so I wanna try something. Is your volume still grayed out?
Oh, but hold on a second. I can actually. Yeah, no, the volume's not grayed out. But yeah, I don't think I'll be able to hear it anyway. Play it, and I can check.
Okay.
Okay, I can hear it now.
Cool.
I forgot about that volume check. Last time I was complaining about there being like a cure to a stab, or no, not a cure to a stab. That's fine because it's Shimmer, but just the fact that Vi powered through that stab that well, that's yeah, no one's going to be doing that. But that we talked about that well enough already, I think.
Yeah.
I think this stuff is solid. Obviously he feels in some sense indebted to her just because of being indebted to Vander, and probably guilt for bringing himself into the situation that he is in. His like addiction and stuff, and kind of being too weak to do anything about Silco and just kind of going with the flow.
Yeah, and
Quite
that
quite
makes it
quite
all the more
quite solid.
heartbreaking when this scene comes to an end.
It's true.
And it's nice because it sets up, like, because this whole time, Vi's returned, but everybody wants to be her enemy.
Friend. Oh.
I mean, she has, like, Jericho, but, like, he's just a dude making a living. And Goblin Lady, like, withholds information and whatnot. And Silco runs everything, so it's not like anyone she can trust. And then we come to this person who, by all accounts, should be trustworthy, and has specific reason to want to help them. And you know, it sort of draws the audience in, like, oh, this is someone we can rely on. And then it turns out no. Spoiler, but no.
You never trusted Druggy.
Ring chimes for service. I like her. This is one of the things we've talked about a fair bit with Arcane. How they just put a lot of detail and effort in everything. Like her and Jericho and all these other characters who show up. They could have just put like generic human in all these places, and it would have been fine. But they were like, well, we have all these sort of fantastical races in the League of Legends lore. Let's use them. And so all these places where they could have just put some dude, they're like, how can we make this the most visually interesting version of this character we can? So they give Jericho this sort of fish creature, the guy in charge of the fish butchers, and then this sort of this sort of wild witch-looking lady becomes the doctor. And it's not a huge deal, and it would have worked if it was humans, but it just shows like an extra level of care and effort they've put in, I think. Also, I'm just noticing this now, but why is Caitlyn wearing her bra on the outside?
It's a really weird design choice for the suit.
I mean, I'm just saying, if I was a police officer and I showed up with some speedos over my work over my work uniform, I feel like I'd get in trouble.
Well, she's not wearing the work uniform anymore, though, right? It's the jacket that
Oh, you're right.
Vi took off. Yeah, still a weird design choice for the jacket.
Well, to be fair, Caitlyn didn't make it. It was the weird fish lady.
Yep. Oh no, I'm not saying Caitlyn. I'm saying generally.
It's certainly visually. I mean, it's. I think it's like as like an aesthetic choice. I think it's not bad. It adds a pop of color to an otherwise sort of bland brown jacket.
Yeah.
And then sort of as the aesthetic style, it sort of exemplifies the shall we call them favorite features of the ladies, which is it's actually kind of hilarious. I don't know how interested you are in. I imagine a little bit, but Shad talked about this when he talked about boob armor. If you look at medieval armor, King Henry's armor, they have like these giant cod pieces with these like large penis molds, which is hilarious. I understand we're going into battle and I might die, but I don't want people to think I died with a small penis.
For the honor of of armor, I will say that majority of the medieval period didn't do that kind of ridiculous nonsense.
To be
It was
fair, I
only
imagine,
the later part of it.
yeah, and I would imagine a large chunk of that probably has to do with like affording it. I don't like if you're like a poor peasant or nobleman, like, do you want 20 shillings extra for the giant penis? You're like, no thanks, bro. Yeah, I'm trying to cut some He's like, will it help protect my groin? Not at all. No thanks then. Yeah. And that's like kind of a nice point for the continuity, right? She asks him an ailment, and he doesn't actually know. He just knows he's injured, so he looks to Caitlyn, and Caitlyn gives the answer, which is that's a nice detail.
Yes, it feels good.
So what do we think about that exchange? Okay, I guess I'll go
Well,
first then.
oh, all right.
Do you want to say something, or
No,
should I
no,
go?
yeah, yeah, go ahead, go ahead. Yeah, it was just fast, and then it was like almost immediately. All right, I'll go first, which is fine. You can totally go ahead.
Okay, there might be a delay on my end then,
Maybe.
and probably I'm more perceptive to it because I'm getting there's dead air. I get worried.
Okay.
But yeah, I think right, because Vi makes the comment, it's never been this big before, and so it's kind of easy to sort of brush that off as, well, Silco is bad guy, and so now place is worse. But I think what adding sort of these sections sort of explains why the place is the way it is and makes sense within the context of everything. Right? Silco has created a world that, at its foundation, is based around power, holding power, the having power, and the usage of power is what determines everything, your success, your wealth, and everything else in this world. Whereas Vander's sort of underground was based around sort of companionship and brotherhood as sort of its moral guiding principles. And so, in a world that Silco has now built, where the guiding principle is the acquisition and utilization of power, people like Huck, who didn't have power, who have never had any sort of power, have to adapt to the situation. So in Vander's world, right, he becomes friends with everybody, he helps out, and he brings in money and sort of contributes in his own way. And that works because that's how the society is built. But as we come into this new society that Silco's built, none of those sorts of skills or abilities are innately valuable. And so, in order to adapt, it's necessary to increase one's power. And Shimmer was designed specifically with the intent of being able to increase one's power. So, it makes sense that within this world, where Shimmer is rampantly available and provides you with significant power boost, where the only principle of note or matter or substance is power, that it would necessarily force people to engage and utilize this new drug. And so what I like about this isn't like, well, Silco's pushing cocaine, and so now everyone's on cocaine because Silco's a bad guy. Every piece of this sort of society makes sense in connection to all the other pieces. See what I'm saying?
I think so. Maybe. Perhaps.
Well, was there anything you wanted to comment on that piece of dialogue before we continue?
You can go ahead.
And that's kind of a nice, funny touch. She like looks at it. She's like, "May," and she gets that look like maybe I should go for it. And she slowly moves it back. You ain't slick, dog. You ain't you a cop, not a robber. I knew it. Alex Jones was right. The doctors are coming to take away our guns, and they're going to lock us up in FEMA camps. No,
Well,
Caitlin,
see,
no.
here, Caitlin is espousing the tenets of the values of our society, comrade, which is thou shalt redact thine offensive means, thou shalt consume the juice.
Oh my god. Sure. Okay. Okay. Sure.
Can't you see? Can't you see?
Sure. Why not? Fuck it. Lock him up in FEMA camps. Get the jab. I don't. All right. Let's just continue then. Oh, I will notice. Because I imagine you were going to bring this up in a second because it was mentioned on EFAP that maybe she gave the gun up a bit too quickly. Should have gone for something else first. Like
Yeah.
like the jacket, and then like says no. I want your guns. I'm coming for your guns. My name is Dr. Obama.
Exactly.
I couldn't do it during. I didn't do it during my presidency, so now I'm doing it as your family physician. And I think they see the FEMA camps where you get the interdimensional vampires will get you.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember the points made on EFAP, but I do think it makes. I do think that the small little detail of like, oh, I'll give you this, and like, no, the rifle, and she thinks, fine, because that thing came in clutch. Like that's important. It's gonna be important. If she hadn't hesitated about, or if she had hesitated about it, because it's like if you had this later on when the firelights show up, well, things may have gone quite a bit differently, and it's like you could think, well, it retroactively makes this look a little bit more convenient, but it's such a minor change that you'd have to do,
yeah,
in order to make it work. Like it's reasonable enough because she could like it also kind of shows that she'll just come to the conclusion of like, hey, like this is clearly like black market, like valuable. You're doing me a solid. I can already intuit that they're gonna expect so, like, and I've been here like long enough already for it's like she's going into the unknown. She like kind of like a what are we like a Spirited Away. She's already starting to enter into this new world, and she realizes like it's not quite gonna cut it. But I can't do half measures here. It's like okay, fine, like I'm just gonna give you the rifle up front. So I think either interpretation works.
Yeah, she is also a cop working the Shimmer case, so she probably has a decent idea of how valuable Shimmer is.
True.
So she's like, these are all clothes I just stole off some guy. Not going to be, these are probably and these clothes are probably scabbard off of some tilt over dumpster. So oh yeah, I mean, like with most things in Arcane, I think pretty much all of our problems with Arcane come down to there's like a minor thing that could maybe possibly be improved, but it's not a big deal and doesn't really hurt the story that much or at all.
Yeah.
But yeah. That's also a bit of a nice touch. Like she didn't put the activating agent in it, the shimmer in it, until she got the payment, just in case Caitlyn tried to steal it. Which would make sense given that her main clientele are junkie tweakers, who would definitely try to pull something like that. So yeah, I thought it was kind of a nice touch.
Sure.
Rude. And that look just sort of sets us up for what's coming. Right? He looks over at the shimmer with those like right, he's staring at the shimmer, he's got the glint in his eyes. And yeah, and I think this is the part of the scene where he realizes that he's going to have to sell her out. At least that's how I interpret the scene, right? Because she gets it, and he looks at the shimmer. He gets the look in his eyes and like the purple reflection, and then she turns to leave, and this is when he starts saying the well, I can't come, and then he apologizes, despite the fact that he has not at this point done anything wrong, right? This is an apology for what he's going to do. At least that's how I interpret the scene. Do you disagree?
I actually it didn't occur to me because yeah, because no, I honestly I don't think so, because I don't think he necessarily is at this moment anticipating that Silco's about to show up, you know, like I think it's really just like the shame of, you know, what he's kind of like allowed to happen to himself, or done to himself, and not wanting to see Vi because of that, just the outward effect of it primarily.
I mean,
I think I think it's largely like, I don't want her to see me like this, isn't like, which kind of to me is like, okay, but there's more going on here than just what you look like, right? Like it's like, I want her to see me like this, but what about like, you know, like gosh, I can't think of a smarter way to say this other than like, what about the interior that's also being affected by this stuff, right? Like the fact that he is gonna be able to like sell her out. I just like, I would be more inclined to think that he's not thinking about that. Makes it almost more punchy when it's like, oh, you just said how like ashamed you are, and like you just sold her out for the shimmer.
Yeah. The way I see it, I think he at this point would probably. I feel like Silco's kind of put out the word at this point that he's looking for Vi, because he knows at the end of the episode before this that she's back because of what happens with Savika. And in this episode, we have Jinx talk to Theon, more commonly known as Chuck,
Ah, yes. I was like, wait, who?
about how they're going to grab up the girls. So I think it's probably like to like in the Joker. I'm going to put the word out, a bounty on this clown. Uh, Dark Knight, not Joker. But So I think he's probably aware, and that's why he knows Vi's in there, because he like probably recognize, because she looks very different, but she's like
Oh, dude,
similar.
she doesn't look different enough to be like, wait, what? Like, no, like I don't think that
Well,
supports
I
it.
mean, listen, she's outside for a couple seconds, and the most defining thing is the red hair. Then you hear, oh, Vi's around. Puts two and two together.
Mm.
Goes and sees her with genuine intentions to help, and then at this point, changes. But that's just how I see it. And
Yeah, it
you're free.
definitely makes sense.
Yeah, and you can see it your way. Uh, even though you think silly things like that Vi is the main character.
And
Why
there's
you
Marcus
always
doing the thing.
lying?
Yeah,
Stop,
doing the thing again.
stop
Acquiescing.
lying. Yeah, and Drace is there alone, noticeably, working on getting shit done because
Yeah,
he's
he's
on
on the
that
grind
Sigma
set.
male grind set.
Yeah. Yeah, the political grind set as opposed to Victor's science grind set.
Reject keeping your friend alive. Embrace political advancement.
Yeah. And look at this guy. He can be on that Sigma male grind set simultaneously. Wait, no, hold on. You know what? You know how we can tell that Jace is not on the Sigma male grind set?
How
Because he actually still has time for women, which means he's clearly not putting in as much effort as he should be.
reject women. Return to Sigma.
Exactly.
Uh, but yeah, it sort of builds on him as sort of the de facto head of the council now that Heimerdinger's gone, which is odd because he's not in the. Because if he is head, he should be in the head seat, which is the middle seat, which is not his seat. That is Medard. Is it Medarda's seat? No, Medard sits to the left of him. Or am I remembering correctly or not? I can't fucking remember. We'll take a look
I
when
don't know where
Vi
she
starts
sits.
yelling at the council in a few episodes. But I think it's an interesting angle choice because despite oh no, he hasn't kicked out Heimerdinger yet. I'm getting my timeline mixed up. Of course not, because they've just been talking to Heimerdinger, and he says he's going to get it canceled. So it's literally in this episode that he gets kicked out. So that's why he's not in the center. I don't know why my brain just my brain had a bit of an oopsie, Andrew.
It's okay.
Um, but yeah. Okay, we're just gonna play.
Yep. Let's go. I guess Jace isn't aware necessarily of Jinx's symbol compared to the Firelight's typical symbols, which, well, I guess they don't necessarily like leave clues or anything the way she does. I guess like traces of them we know meta-wise are like the non-lethal stun restraint things that they use. But Jace doesn't necessarily know that.
Are you claiming there's some dramatic irony going on here?
No, it's not. It's not ironic. It's just it's reasonable.
Well, so dramatic irony is just when we know things that the characters don't, and they act in ways that uh, that advance the opposite of what they want.
Yeah, no, but it's not ironic.
Okay, well, I'm going to disagree here. I'm going to say it is dramatic irony.
No, I'm just kidding. Just memeing. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
okay.
um, yeah, just
But
the whole thing of like people using irony. I don't think I even necessarily know what the full definition of irony is, but there's like so many different variants of it, and then you have like the new versions of irony, which is just like, oh my gosh, let me breathe.
like post and meta irony are not ironic by definition. They're meta ironic and post ironic. Irony is just when
What?
so irony is when you do something to achieve a specific result, and that action creates the opposite result. So, for
Okay.
example, South Park is a show that was going to get canceled because it had low viewership. However, a bunch of moral busybody old ladies created a giant campaign to get South Park canceled. As a result of their canceling campaign, more people tuned in to see what the show was about, driving up the numbers. If not for those ladies attempting to cancel South Park would not be around today.
Ha.
Irony.
Ironic.
Right. And so conversationally, when we say ironic sort of conversationally, we sort of mean sarcasm. And then post irony is where iDubbbz had a breakdown in his video on Sam Hyde that was decent, even if iDubbbz is a little cucked nowadays.
Hmm.
But post irony is when you say something true like you're saying it sarcastically. So like, yeah, Andrew, I really do consider us friends. Would be a post ironic statement. An ironic statement would be, no, Andrew, I hate you. That's why I spend so much time watching Arcane with you.
What would be the meta ironic version of that?
Meta irony is when the intent is unclear. So iDubbbz in his video uses a good example of eating shit. Sincere statement. I don't like to eat shit. Ironic statement is an ironic statement would be like, oh yeah, I love eating shit. And then post ironic, I don't like eating shit. If you put a delicious pile of shit in front of me, I would not gobble that up voraciously like a wild animal. Oh god, I do not like it at all. And then he gets to meta ironic, and he looks at the camera and says, I don't like eating shit. Now, it seems like that's probably true. That'd be kind of an insane thing to like. That'd be crazy. But then again, I have just spent the last 20 minutes talking about how much I definitely don't want to eat shit. It could be true. You don't know. Right? And this is what Sam Hyde does. Because Sam Hyde will say something, and we'll have no idea whether or not what he's saying is like true or not true, or what degree in between, or really what's happening. And that's what he's doing when he uses meta irony. So like an example of this is like this recent video he released where he calls up his mom and asks her for money to so he can invest in like for his NFT project.
Oh no.
And it's like this super strange, uncomfortable conversation where he's like trying to get her to pull money out of her like funds and stuff.
Actually, the irony thing on his mom.
Well, so we don't know. It could be that's his mom. It could be that's an actor that he's paid to pretend to be his mom. Right?
True.
It could be he's doing it to his mom as a joke. It could be that he's doing it with his mom who is in on the joke. It could be it's not his mom. Right? We have no idea what's actually happening. And that's what makes it meta ironic. So yeah, that's the big difference between those groups. And then when we say dramatic irony, which is what I'm saying is happening in this scene, it's when we know something, when the character does something against their own interest that we know is against their own interest because we have knowledge that they don't. So, for example, we know that the Fireflies are all upstanding people who want peace, and that Jinx and Silco are the ones who want to like cause chaos and destroy stuff. And we know that Marcus is on the payroll. So Jace, trusting Marcus to go after the Fireflies for the benefit of Silco and Jinx, is directly against his interests. We know this, but Jace, not knowing that, no, doesn't know this. And so he acts in the way that makes sense given the information he has, even though with the information we have, we know that's not the thing he should be doing. And that's what makes it dramatic irony. Did I explain that all clearly enough? And also, to sort of reinforce that notion, look at the framing of the scene. We have Marcus standing up, towering over Jace, while Jace is like sitting down, looking up at him. Because Jace might be head of the council, but in this sort of power dynamic, Marcus holds all the cards because he has all the knowledge, and knowledge is power. And so he could come in here and tell Jace it was fucking anyone who was doing the bombings, and Jace would have to listen to him and tell him to go after him. So despite him being on the council, we have him standing and him sitting, which makes sense given like the positions they're in, but reinforces this sort of power dynamic where Marcus has all the cards and Jace has none of them.
Yeah.
Right, and he can just, because he has all the information, he can just start manipulating Jace into doing whatever he wants him to do. He's also making it look like a thing he doesn't. I don't want to do this. This is just the reasonable thing to do. This isn't me pushing anything. And he's also given like an air of reasonable deniability if this ever like blows up in his face. They'll come to him and say, "You ordered this." It's like, I didn't order it. Jace did. I told him it was an extreme measure, but he said, he said do it, and he's the council. I'm just the poor innocent sheriff.
Yeah.
He dies before that comes to fruition, but we see him here using his cards, hedging his bets, making smart moves, whereas Jace is not doing that.
Yeah, Jace isn't very good at doing that.
No. Yeah, he gets better with it over the season, but he never really gets super good at it.
I think his complete. Well, I guess we'll talk about when we get there. But I really like the final scene of his final decision with Silco.
Oh, yeah. And then of course we have the one thing Marcus can't control come up. I heard you, Caitlin Kierman, had a prisoner released under your orders.
Oh yeah.
He did not know that.
That's really interesting right there. It's like that should trigger like 100 questions in Jace's mind, but just like it's interesting that he just makes the decision of like, I will figure this out if there's anything to figure out. Because he obviously he cares about her.
Yeah, I think primarily he's trying to protect Caitlin, right? Because obviously she was not supposed to and not allowed to do that.
Yeah.
You can't just say, "Oh no, the president totally gave me this pardon. You can let this prisoner go now." That would be highly illegal.
Yep.
And that probably tells Marcus something as well. Because he asks if there's anything he can help with, and he doesn't get like an explanation or anything. Because Jace, which probably indicates to some degree that this may have been, as Marcus says, she does whatever she wants. But yeah. And here we come to the big.
I love this scene.
Yeah.
This is kind of like also has that dramatic irony to it because, well, obviously Heimerdinger has no idea what Jace is about to do, and him trying to be like, it's it's a bit of like an okay boomer moment, because Heimerdinger's like, here's our solution. Like he's very correctly describing a problem, and he's like, our solution: we will keep each other accountable. It's like, yeah. You're just, you're gonna take all these corrupt people and expect them to just kind of watch each other's back. Like,
It's the legislative equivalent of "our thoughts are with you."
Exactly.
Hurricanes have destroyed our home. Oh well, we'll be thinking of you as you fucking drown to death and starve.
Yeah. So Heimerdinger's got a bad take here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Though it's kind of interesting. I like the intro because he starts talking about a world that cannibalized itself on power, which is sort of Silco's whole worldview, which exists specifically because Piltover is exerting an inordinate amount of power on the lower cities, right? In some ways, this place was founded as a bastion to escape the cannibalizing nature of power, yet it seems as though their safe haven has engaged in the same sorts of practices that Heimerdinger is criticizing.
Yes. A bit tricky.
Yeah.
A bit tricky.
Hey, it's your favorite movie.
Oh, Primer loves the Primer. Oh, what's my brain?
Prestige.
Heimerdinger loves the Prestige.
Yeah.
Don't know why I said.
We traded honor for time travel boxes. Who knows? With Hextech, anything's possible. Well, hold on. Echo's ability is that he can go back in time.
Oh my goodness! There you go.
Echo was Aaron the whole time.
That was Aaron. Amazing.
But it's also like an incredibly, I guess in some ways naive speech, because if so, what it seems like Heimerdinger is saying is, oh, we've all become like he's talking about how we've traded all this honor for prestige. It sort of seems like he's saying, you guys are all a little corrupt, and I think to fix this, we need to stop doing that.
Yeah.
It just reminds me of the Bill Burr sketch. Oh, we're not supposed to hit the women. Oh, upsy daisy, sweetums. Like, oh, we're not supposed to be massively. I thought the bribes were good. Okay, I'm sorry. My bad, guys. My bad. I'll stop doing that now. Says literally no oligarch to have ever existed. Like,
Tribe, interesting.
yeah, Heimerdinger base tribalist. Abandon tolerance. Embrace discrimination.
Based. based and identity pilled.
Yeah, this is sort of like
It's an interesting line though. But
well, I mean, I think we're sort of playing word games with what he's saying there. When he's saying like houses divided versus tribe, what he's saying is that we're all Piltovians, and we need to stand together instead of constantly tearing each other apart and dragging each other down. Right? He's not making like an anti-Noxian creed
no,
here.
I know. I thought it was interesting that like if they actually like legitimately were a tribe before that, but yeah, that's probably reading too much into it.
So it's hard to tell because this is the big problem with Heimerdinger. He exists on a different time scale from us.
Yep.
So we have no concept of like Piltovians and Zonites ever being like one tribe. But that may legitimately be true for Heimerdinger. It may be the case because he was there when the city was founded. Presumably, everyone joined together, came to this place, and founded the city together. Then over time, for various reasons, we now have come to this split. And because of like how short, how long his lifespan is, it may be hard for him to have sort of seen the split developing. It may have just right because his time perception is going to be so whacked compared to ours. So it may legitimately to him feel like he woke up one day, and like suddenly there's this huge divide that wasn't there before. What the hell happened? Because he's been around for like for you say like 137 or 300? I can't remember. How old is Heimerdinger? Let me.
I think it's something like 300 because I think the city was like 200 something years old.
That makes sense.
Or
Well, how old is
Einstein Dingersky.
307? Right? So if this divide's happened in like a few generations, that could be like, a sixth of his life, maybe. And so it may be the case that like this is, and to be fair, it's not like one of the big themes that we've been going to the show is that the people high up in Piltover can't see the people below him. So it may legitimately be the case that Heimerdinger, up until Jinx started bombing shit, thought, yeah, we're all Piltovians, we're all one tribe, everyone's happy and wants to work together. It's like what was it, the Quebecois? Oh yeah, they totally think of themselves as French. They're French guys, and they show up and they're like, oh no, we do not want to go to the war. We are fine with our poutine and croissants. You may go fight for the English crown. We do not give a fuck about France. And everyone's like, oh, we didn't see that coming. And maybe the same for Heimerdinger.
Quebec is really interesting world building all around.
And so when we see it, and this is something, and when Jay sees it, and when everyone sees it, it seems it's coming off like this sort of like out of like what the fuck are you talking about, old man? We were once one tribe. We have no fucking memory of ever being a tribe. We're not even sure Piltover is one tribe anymore, let alone Piltover and Zon. Just some fucking crazy old man from our perspective. But you can sorely see because of how his sort of lifespan is, how he would come to these conclusions and see them as reasonable to say, even though it just sounds like retarded gobbledygook to the rest of us. And this is what's going to be the crux of Jace's speech when he goes after him in a second.
Holds you accountable. Base Jace.
And it's a great fucking a phrase to turn the conversation on. Because he comes
Absolutely.
out with like this holier than thou. Oh, we have strayed from the path of the one true counsel. But come, my brothers, I will show you the path to righteousness. And Jace,
Yeah.
you're like Jace is pissed off. Like, you acting like your shit don't stink. He's like, we need to hold each other accountable. Like, you've been here for fucking 200 years. I've been here for like 3 weeks. Let's take some fucking stock here of who's done what, sir. Actually, at this point, it's not 3 weeks, so it's been like 3 or 4 years. Or it's been like 6 years. Right? And so he comes in, he's like, look at all these fucking problems. All under your watch. And that's not a great counter. Right? He just came out
No.
and gave this giant speech about how we need to hold each other accountable. And then when Jace does that, he doesn't have a response like, well, listen, I mean, I get that it's not good, but there are some factors here that you're leaving out of your analysis, like this, and this, that makes the
Yep.
situation a bit more complicated to deal with. Right? He doesn't have anything like this. And so he says, you forget yourself. You're doing the thing I told you to do, but I didn't mean for you to do it to me, you son of a bitch.
Yeah, which is literally like there's Jace's whole argument like made for him.
Yeah. It is not a strong, very, very weak and very bad rhetorical play.
Heimerdinger's doing a bad take here. It's not a whole lot of mistakes to his life, but there's one right there.
Yeah.
A significant one because it leads to his extradition from the concilium.
Right, and this also shows why Heimerdinger's plan is kind of doomed to fail on sort of inception. Because Heimerdinger is like the
Absolutely.
least corrupt of everyone on this council. And he gets like the tiniest bit of criticism, and now he's flipping out a little bit. Can you imagine going to like the guy who's struggling with the children's toy and like, actually you're like really corrupt and you need to stop? You'd lose his shit. And so this is just all around very poor showing rhetorically for in this sort of engagement for Heimerdinger, which is one of the big reasons he loses. The other is that Jace has engaged in realpolitik when Heimerdinger has not, uh, which is real unfortunate. And this goes to what the main and biggest issue with Heimerdinger is. He doesn't have the ability to really explain anything he believes.
True.
Right?
True. We
Every
have seen that
time,
quite a bit.
right? Yeah, because every time we talk to him about sort of anything, he says, you need to do this. Source, trust me, bro.
Exactly. Take my word for it. I was there. Like, well, okay, I wasn't there. Explain it to me. It happened.
Right? And part of that is probably because of that huge difference in lifespan. It can be incredibly difficult to explain, and the sort of views of how they see the world is sort of so. This is something that right, when you engage with someone who has a fundamentally different worldview, you can't really argue from the same sorts of footing. Right? If I'm going, so for example, if uh if you were going to if I was talking to someone, for example, and we want abortion's a good example of this because it's a hot button issue in the U.S. right now, and I wanted to convince someone of abortion being bad, and I hold that abortion is bad because I have deeply held Christian beliefs. And so I go out and I start citing all these different Bible verses. That's not going to be a good argument or a valuable argument if someone isn't a Christian, right? Because they're fundamentally different worldviews. And so the only
It's not
way.
something that will resonate with them, I guess.
Yeah. So the only way.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't matter what sort of arguments you make from that position. It's never going to connect or change anything. The only way that you can convince someone of something is you have to, for the purposes of the conversation, adopt that person's worldview and then argue from within it. So, for example, instead of quoting Bible verses, you might shift the argument to, well, okay, do you consider killing life wrong? If yes, here is a scientific argument for why a fetus might be considered life. Right? It's the same conclusion, but you have to argue the position differently from within that person's worldview in order to convince them. Heimerdinger doesn't seem to have any sort of conception of these other characters' worldview. Or when he does, he treats those worldviews as sort of childish and beneath consideration.
Yes. 100%.
Which is literally the worst way to convince anyone of anything.
Yeah, just discredit their...
I just imagine going to someone, if I came to you and said, Andrew, you're pro-life, but have you considered that you're wrong and dumb? Upsy daisy, sweetheart.
How could I have missed that? Oh my goodness. How could I have
thought of that? Not thought of that position. Right? And so in some degrees, when this conversation is now taking place, Jace has the advantage because this is his home turf, so to speak. I'm on team short lifespan here. I know what it's like. I can adopt these worldviews, and it seems like Heimerdinger can't. And so there isn't a way that Heimerdinger can connect his points in a way that makes sense to the target audience, but Jace can. Yeah, was there anything you wanted to add, or should we play a bit more?
I think you nailed it. Yeah, we can go.
And those are also some pretty great lines for the sake of the arguments, because for a couple of reasons. One, the Jace is framing the argument in sort of negative and positive. So you hear about this a lot in sort of an analysis of presidential and prime ministerial candidates. You have to, when you're running for office of some sort, and this is Jace is in effect now attempting a small coup to place him at the head of government. When you make these, you have to make positive policy prescriptions. When I'm in charge, I will do X, Y, and Z. You cannot run a campaign off of solely negative prescriptions. You should vote for me because my candidate is bad, because my candidate won't do X, Y, and he will do B and C. Right? This is one of the big things that happened in the 2016 presidential election. Right? If you looked at it, they did an analysis of who had more actual policy speech in their rhetoric and in their debates. And Trump, for all of his faults, had policy prescription. Going to build the wall, going to drain the swamp, going to lock up Hillary Clinton. Right? And the big
thing, very kind of poignant, I'm not sure what the word is, but very emphasized tangible specifics.
Right, and
people can latch onto.
Right, and Clinton.
I think it's a very idea.
Yeah, and Clinton's campaign was sort of the opposite. She was hitting down. It was mostly like, my opponent is a man-child. It's a good thing that someone with his temperament isn't president. He's an idiot. He's stupid. He can't be trusted. All these different negative stuff. But there wasn't a whole lot of like I can you think of a big policy proposal from that election from her? Everyone knows
I,
Trump wanted the wall. It's one of
yep.
his big. It's also why JRX. I don't know if you saw this, but Dreg, the meta ironic political commentator, ran for mayor of Ottawa. And he was, in his big platform was he was going to build a wall and do auto exit. And whenever anyone asked him how big the wall was, he says he just answered, "It gets 6 feet higher every time someone asks." So it's in flux, right?
It's amazing.
But yeah, and this was a rhetorical tool that Trump in this case used, and it worked. He won the election. And similarly, this is sort of what's happening here. Heimerdinger isn't really making any. Well, so to be fair, he is. His big policy is we hold each other accountable, which he has now immediately folded on. At like the slightest touch, immediately fold it. But aside from that, he's like, oh, we're doing all these things wrong, and we need to stop doing all these things. And Jace, on the other hand, is like, we need to look forward. We need to innovate. We need to deal with the situation beneath. We need to stop the terrorists. He has like all these. He has like specific. He has policy proposals that are, they're not like hyper specific. He's not laying out a plan to get rid of all of them. But he's listing specific goals as opposed to like vague, oh, we'll hold each other accountable and be vigilant. Right?
Yeah, there's nothing tangible. There's nothing like.
There's nothing
It just
meaningful in the statements.
yeah, it's very much the kind of thing that is the opposite of inspire confidence. As Jace is like, hey, I'm pointing the things out. I'm making the observations that everyone's thinking, but doesn't necessarily want to say out loud.
Yeah, because Heimerdinger just says, oh, we're houses divide and stuff, but he's not like laying out, here are the key issues that need to be addressed. And Jake's like, I'll say it. Shimmer, crime, stolen hex tech. Here are the big issues that need to be dealt with. And then he asks him, what's your plan? And Heimerdinger doesn't have one, and that's a problem. I'm just imagining, like, we go to, like, there's been some terrible, literally every time there's some sort of terrible accident or something horrible occurs in the country, what do? They go to the head of state. What's your plan? He comes out and says, we're going to do this, this, and this. And then everyone talks for like a week about whether or not it'll be effective, or it's a good plan, or it's a bad plan. But it has the infinite advantage of being a plan of any kind. A bad plan can often be better than no plan at all. At least in terms, it's better at least in terms of politics, right? There's never this is Machiavelli. It's better to have taken a position and been wrong than to have taken no position at all. And unfortunately, Heimerdinger is going to find this out the hard way, because Jace makes a ton of decisions, and they're all bad decisions. But he's making them, and that's one thing you can't really say about Heimerdinger up to this point.
Yeah.
And that's also not helping, right?
Oh, not at all. Not at all. It's just more of the same.
I see what this is about. Your hex tech stuff needs more work and more safeguards. So one, this is a deflection, not an addressal, which comes off poorly. Two,
So even if it's true, like even if Jace is just taking revenge, which he's not, I'm convinced he's not. Like it doesn't look good for Heimerdinger because now he's like, hold on, Jace made a point. Like, what's your answer? You don't have one? Okay, well then Jace is right.
the second big issue with it is what he's essentially doing by saying that is drawing attention to the fact that Jace has all these inventions that he's built to fix all these problems.
Yes, that everyone wants sooner than later.
Right.
Heimer is saying no, later.
Right? It's essentially saying, I see what this is about. You want to release all those products that will fix all of our problems. Well, I'm telling you here, we shouldn't do that. Oh wow, thanks, Heimerdinger. Really a great message. Die now. More will live later. Thanks, bro. Right, and so this sort of just reinforces the fact that Jace is the one with the solutions and the plans. And Heimerdinger once again reinforcing Jace's hypothesis. You only just tell us what not to do. You don't come up with any proposals yourself. And so every line he uses just digs himself further and further into this trench of his own creation. Campaign speech time. And so Jace gives this speech where he lays out, and this was also like this is the last piece of like rhetorical counter dialogue we're really going to talk about for this scene. But Jace gives this framing that he lays out for. This is basically a campaign speech. He's saying, "Vote for me as leader, because I will bring my tech and my knowledge to fix these problems and create a brighter future. Unlike my opponent here,
Yeah.
who will just look at the past, doesn't care about progress, and will just tell us and will just hold us back." And Heimerdinger, what he would have to do now, right? Because he's trying to, assuming he clearly does want to maintain his position, would have to like come up with a counter narrative or some kind of counter framing, which he doesn't here. So everyone's making this vote with the should we have better future or continue with bad past as their voting ideas. And so Heimerdinger's and this is sort of a big problem with how Heimerdinger's handled this entire interaction. Heimerdinger's been speaking in the personal, whereas Jace has been speaking in the political, if that makes sense. Jace is saying, we have problems in Piltover. Here's the problems. Here's things we should address. If I was in charge, I would be addressing this stuff. And every chance Heimerdinger's gotten to talk, he's made it this personal sort of personal beef thing between him and Jace. Watch yourself. Your stuff needs more time. You shouldn't do this. He's never speaking in the political, only the personal. Whereas Jace doesn't hate Heimerdinger. He's not like, these are problems in Piltover, and you're a bad person for causing them. Saying these are problems in Piltover, and they need to be addressed, and I believe I'm the best person to do it. And this is a problem, because Heimerdinger is speaking in the personal, but this isn't a personal conversation between him and Jace. This is a campaign speech. This is a power struggle occurring right now that Heimerdinger doesn't seem to realize is happening until it's way too late. To which he has this like final, please don't do this. But if you're ever in, pro tip, Andrew, if you're in a political race of any kind and your success depends on your opponent not doing something, you are absolutely fucked at that point, and there's nothing you can do to save yourself. So they come to the only reasonable conclusion that's possible given the circumstances. Though the amount of time they take in trying to come to the decision. They take a while to come to the conclusion, which I think is sort of reinforced, which makes sense, even despite Heimerdinger's abysmal rhetorical play here, because of how long he's been a part of the fucking government. There's a great example of this, Andrew. Do you know which example I'm thinking of right now? Of someone who was an important part of government for a very, very long time and only recently became not a part of that government.
I don't know how it would apply in this. Are you talking about Queen Elizabeth?
Yes, our head of government.
That doesn't. I don't know. Like, I don't think it's. There's not a whole lot that's analogous with this, though.
Well, so the comparison would be trying to get would be because there are Canadian Republicans, right, who want to get rid of the monarchy, and the movement has never really picked up any steam, like at all. Like there's been some groups, like JJ, popular YouTuber, was like an early Canadian Republican. But sort of the idea, if we held today, well not today, but like beforehand, a referendum on whether to keep or get rid of the Queen, I'd imagine we'd have a significant. I'm not sure Queen Elizabeth loses that, despite the fact that she doesn't actually really do much. Just because she's been such a huge part of the system for such a long period of time, that she's sort of ingrained in the government as this institution that exists. And as evidence of this, despite the fact that we're like hundreds of years old, we've had like this really, really slow crawl to independence, and we're still not even really fully, technically, because we have the same head of state and whatnot, though our actual obligations are a bit nebulous. But the point I'm trying to make is, despite the Queen on sort of a practical governmental level not serving a whole lot of purpose, the general like well-likedness of her, in conjunction with the long-standing the long-standing existence of the institution, sort of guarantees the crown's continual survival within our governmental system. Likewise, even if Heimerdinger isn't really actually doing much and just saying, be vigilant, hold each other accountable, he's been here since the founding. It's kind of difficult to get rid of him. And so it makes sense in this context that even though Jace has obliterated him on the debate stage, that it's still an extraordinarily difficult decision for them to make, given how well liked he is by the rest of the council and how important he's been to the government to Piltover historically. And that's also why when we go around, people whenever they put their hands up, they keep saying stuff like, "With our deepest sympathies, with great reverence," and all the other sorts of stuff they say. Right? Whereas if Heimerdinger was not Heimerdinger was like a 4-term president, and Jace went at him like this, and he so thoroughly destroyed him, I don't think they take much time in voting him out. Right? You see what I'm saying? Or am I totally off base?
I understand what you're saying. I don't think your analogy checks out, but it has served its purpose to explain, and I understand. And yeah, checks out for Jace. He's got a lot of weight behind him. He's got a lot of respect and value, and you're not gonna just be like, no, screw you, get out of here.
I thought you
It'd
said
be
he had a
a
lot of
weighty
white behind
decision.
him for a second instead of weight.
A lot of what?
A lot of whites.
Oh,
And I
I
immediately
guess
thought of
he's.
the recent Biden speech that was all red and black.
Oh yeah, that was something.
Yeah, that was a real mishap. Because we talk about colors a lot on this show. That was a real, which is important because it's not actually. Basically, what happened was it was like red, white, and blue, but it was zoomed in too much, and so it came off real bad. But actually, let's take a look when get deepest respect and appreciation. And he's completely surprised by all this, which does not indicate good political instincts. Which makes sense given the character at this that as we know him, right? Like he's literally blind to all the corruption as they're watching the Freyord's opera play thing. And then one thing to notice as well that I kind of liked about the framing for the scene leading up to this is when Jace starts talking, he stands up because he's controlled the conversation, and he remains standing, whereas Heimerdinger remains seating and is incredibly small. And so we have once again that framing of an elevated Jace over Heimerdinger as he dominates the conversation and propels himself into Heimerdinger's position and yanking him out of it. This is actually the first time I noticed that originally she looks like Vi's parents. I didn't catch that any of the other times.
Oh, I didn't catch that either. Interesting.
Like I said,
So this is.
every time I play it back, right? That's Mom and that's Powder. Like I said, every time I watch
Oh,
the show, I pick up something new that I didn't catch the last time round. And that
interesting.
makes
I totally didn't catch that.
yeah.
Totally didn't catch that because like she looks similar enough to like from like I don't know, vague color scheme perspective.
Yeah, this
If
is
you
the
like,
same thing that happened with Jinx in the 4th episode when she sees red hair
yep.
girl.
Yep.
Well, that's why you come and watch this show. We'll notice all the things that you missed.
And all the things that we missed.
Yeah, and there's probably still more. Like I've watched this like over 30 times, I think at this point, and every time something new pops up. But yeah, this sort of makes sense as well because Vi is hallucinating all the way up to this point earlier, so it makes sense that like her last thing's sort of a hallucination. Also, I hear a lot of people date people like their moms. I hear guys mostly do that, but you know, Caitlyn is a lesbian, so I don't know how it works for them.
Oh, and this is, of course, in fact, where when Vi gets her shimmer surgery, well, hallucinating, but also double hallucinating Dr. Singed as Caitlyn, and getting all the painful, traumatic jolts, and she's gonna just be completely evil from this point forward.
Yeah, no, this whole scene's a great or this whole section of the show is a great setup for when Jinx eventually goes through her thing, the surgery, right? Because throughout all the way leading up, we see all these different examples of how the shimmer is like fucking with people. Like it destroys Huck's body completely, and she just takes a little bit at one time, and she's going through weird shit. And so when we get to Singed and Jinx, the question everyone's sort of comes to is, okay, what is this going to do to her? What is this much shimmer specifically going to do to her? And the answer is make her even more crazy and give her some powers. So here we go. And it's sort of, I like how there's a bit of subtle hinting if you look at the eyes. Clearly she is very much into Vi. She must not realize that Vi is in fact not the main character, but it's an easy mistake many people make.
Oh, he's not watching.
She's noticing a lot of stuff. It's almost like she's some kind of cop. It's a decent question. I'm sure she's not going to say anything radically insensitive.
She's always doing that. Every freaking time.
Walk. It's the blind man walking around, stepping on rakes, whacking yourself in the face, huh? How do you... It's also not great that it comes off like accusatory. Like, how do you not know? I mean, I was in fucking prison. Like, cut me some slack. What, you don't have any parents? You some kind of fucking orphan loser who has no parents? Right? Just the what? It just bit of dramatic irony, you could say, because it's just so wildly ignorant to say. Like, where?
Dramatic irony's been a bit of a theme this episode, hasn't it?
Yeah. You fucking moron. That's a bit of a problem, right? It just like this is, it sort of just goes to show the sort of ignorance of, it reinforces that ignorance of the topsiders towards Zahn. Like the idea, like she comes from this like cushy 2-parent household, like the Eminem rap at the end of 8 Mile, and Clarence's parents got a real good marriage, right? And he comes down like, what? You don't have any parents? Like most of the fucking kids in this place. Like I think literally, like all 5 of the kids, every kid we're introduced to in this show, at least in like the first 3 episodes, has no real parents, and they have like adoptive parents, and even then they only have 1 adoptive parents. So no, so at best you get a parent, if that. And lots of people, the reason enforcers are so hated is because of the shit like the bridge scene where so many people died. And Caitlin's just unaware, complete head empty, no thoughts.
Head empty. Just the caved in brain meme.
Right, and it makes sense, right? It's like if you grow up like in upper class, like, well, you don't have any family to help you out. Some people don't. And it's just it's like the fish out of water. She's so unfamiliar with this world that these are like, if this happened in Piltover, these would be like no duh questions. And she doesn't have any concept of the gravity of what she's asking until Vi comes out and tells her. Which is what happened at the first time this happened. Looks like there are lots of bodies buried in that basement. And Vi shoulders her. Right?
Yeah,
And
you
this
don't
is
know
just on
anything.
her. This is also right after her big like we're not all monsters, you know. We're people like you. And Vi's big card is, yeah, you are people like us. Fucking murderers. Pieces of shit. And this is caught her facial expressions are pretty decent, where she like reels back and eyes wide. This was not within consideration. This was beyond simulated parameters.
This was not in training.
Yeah. And she ain't got a good comeback for that. I think if you look at like the facial expressions when after Vi turns, it looks like she wants and tries to say something but doesn't. Like right here. Yeah. But they hear something and now both attention. Who could it be, Andrew?
Silkstein.
It's your boy! Leader of the underground.
Hey. Dave Bander's prodigy.
Yeah. And that's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Also, this is what I was talking about, because we talked about this on the Spirited Away stuff. Disney musical undercurrents, and this is an example of that. They're going to go into the song, but they don't jump into it. You can hear the beginnings of Guns for Hire as this conversation plays out, and this is probably one of the two most important for conversations for my argument that Vi. This is like the last time Vi has the chance to bring back Powder, and she is in a place where that is fundamentally impossible. She doesn't have the capacity. Her plan was doomed from the start, so to speak. And this conversation, the conversation that comes after this between her and Jinx, I think demonstrate why. But let's get a bit further into it before I start talking about that. Okay, so let's talk about Silco's speech now, and then we'll do Vi's after she talks. So Silco's is kind of interesting, and I think it sets up well for what happens for episode 9 and all this different stuff. Because how do I put this? I really like Silco's speech here, even though it sounds incredibly self-serving. Because it plays into a couple of different central sort of disagreements between Vi and or sort of differentiate how Vi and Silco sees Jinx. Or at this point, as I would argue, Powder Jinx, because I don't believe she becomes Jinx until episode 9. Even though you disagree, but that's okay. It's fine to be wrong. But Silco comes out, and so the line is, I thought you were the prize of your secondhand family, but Jinx is more than I could have ever imagined. I'm paraphrasing it a little bit, but it's something along the line of that. And what I like about this line is it maintains that sort of self-serving nature that sort of gives legitimacy to the question of whether or not Silco cares about her or not. It's very clear after first viewing that he obviously loves her very much. It's not as I think it's. I interpreted it all the way through when I watched it first time around that Silco legitimately did love her, but not everyone does. And I think it's scenes like this that do a good job sort of maintaining that balance of perspective that allow you to sort of read in and interpret, because it's an incredibly self-serving statement, but it's also a statement that sort of gives Jinx everything she wants. Jinx's whole, her entire like internal conflict is her trying to determine whether or not she has value. And part of that, how she's trying to do that, is how useful do people around her find her, and how talented and effective and skilled she is in comparison to other people like Vi, right? We have that scene when Jinx goes back to the arcade and has that fight against Vi's high scores where she comes in second, and then she gets angry and shoots the dummy. And so this is how Jinx derives herself, or where she derives her self-worth from. Implicit in Silco's statement is that not only is she more important, is she more valuable than her sister, contrary to what the score would tell her, right? Because I thought you were the prize, right? He doesn't think it, he used to think, as in no longer thinks, that Vi was the prize of her secondhand family. Saying therefore that Jinx is really the big prize. But then he reinforces that she's more than I could have ever imagined. Her value is far beyond anything I could have possibly considered or understood it to have been. And so what's sort of implicit in that statement is everything Jinx wants, and Jinx at this point seems to need, is provided by Silco to her. Because in that sort of one statement, it concedes everything she could have ever want him to believe. And he gives that up seemingly without any sort of benefit to himself. Right? He could just send them after her and it wouldn't really make a difference. But he's offering this voluntarily. And so it seems like it's true and that he does believe that. And so then we have Vi's sort of counter. And it is going in theme, it is not good. But before we do that, was there anything you wanted to say about Silco's sort of monologue here?
No, I think you did a solid there. I didn't realize a lot of those things.
Okay. Okay, so that's Vi's retort. I think it is indicative of the fact that she will fail ultimately. Do you want me to go off, or do you want to say anything about it before I do?
Well, the one thing that just jumped to my mind that she said it was like I couldn't help but think, like, wait a second, Vi never does anything like that. Never even comes close to doing anything like that. She helps Jace they do have that one fight. She gets one shot at it. It doesn't go that well. So that just seems interesting to me. I don't know what to make of it, but it's interesting.
So just to clarify, which thing are you saying that she never does?
She never brings down his empire.
I would say she does. Well, she doesn't, but I do believe she legitimately tries. Right? She does team up with Jace, take out the facilities, and then it's only when Jace says he's not doing it and she loses her backing that she goes to fight Savika again. Whereas I think it's more of a case of her lacking resources than will, is what I'm saying.
I don't think it's a matter of her lacking will by any means, for sure.
And technically, I mean, because of her, that Jinx, spoiler for the final episode, shoots Silco. Right? If not for Vi, if Marcus had killed Vi like Silco ordered, Silco would still be alive at the end of the season.
True.
So in some way, and we also know Silco, by the end, genuinely doesn't actually care that much about his empire anymore. He only cares about Jinx. And so in some ways,
Yep.
in like a metaphorical sense, she does bring his empire crashing down around him. Because he does have to admit by the end that fundamentally he has to abandon the empire and the principles and ideas that created it and made it valuable in the first place. But yeah, my big issue with Vi's speech is Silco's come out and gives his, and it's perfectly in line with Jinx's values and views and beliefs and what she wants and needs at this point. And Vi's is the exact opposite. She's coming out and saying that Jinx, right, I'm going to find her and erase whatever fucked up delusions you put in her head, then I'm going to bring your empire crashing down around you, right? Jinx has been brainwashed. She hasn't been able to resist the brainwashing. She doesn't have the skills or the abilities necessary to be able to think for herself or cut weak sister from the clutches of the bad man. This is literally everything that Jinx fucking hates. And this is what happens, because you'll see this now that I've mentioned the fucking baby sister, save child baby sister. Look, you'll see when she reacts to Vi, you'll see that exact sort of dynamic play out. But this sort of speaks to how Silco and Vi are both approaching Jinx. And the problem is, Silco is approaching Jinx. He's willing to meet Jinx where she is. And he cares about her and wants to interact with her. Vi doesn't. She doesn't know Jinx. She doesn't really care about Jinx. She wants powder at this point. And she thinks that she needs to, that the things that she's done since then are sort of part of this brainwashing that Silco has done, and not a part of Jinx or Powder Jinx, the person. So she's not even willing at this point to grant the existence of her sister prior to this sort of diplomatic action beginning. And so there's no way, you can't reach someone if you can't even acknowledge they exist. Fundamentally, she's and we'll talk about this a bit more when we get to the second speech.
I don't think she's not really acknowledging that she exists. She just doesn't understand how
well, okay,
deep the brainwashing essentially, or I guess brainwashing goes.
Let me rephrase what I'm saying, because I'm not sure it's coming across as I'm intending it to. I'm saying there is a person that exists called Jinx. Now, I'd argue she's not Jinx. That's not actually important. But there is a person who exists called Jinx who does things and believes things. Right? And we agree on that. Silco, when he goes out and says, "Find Jinx. I want Jinx. Bring me Jinx." Silco is looking for that person who acts and thinks and claims to be and is that Jinx. Vi is not looking for that person. She's looking for an entirely different person who does not exist. But she thinks she does exist. Right? This powder of her mind.
Right.
This powder of her mind doesn't exist, but she thinks she does. And she thinks that powder of her mind is the person who says she is Jinx. And so implicit in that sort of view is that this powder exists, but this Jinx, who you're claiming to be, doesn't really exist. This is just like a mask or a persona that this powder of her mind has put on and pretended to be. This will get. I think we should wait for the next conversation between them because it really illustrates what I'm trying to say here. The big takeaway from this conversation, I think, is that Vi is once again framing this as Powder is a damsel in distress. She can't help herself. She needs my assistance and me to come save her because she can't do anything herself, which is Jinx's greatest fear, is that she is valueless and can't provide anything, and she's a drag on the people around her. So from get-go, she has to accept either from the way these two people have framed it, from the get-go of the diplomatic action, Jinx sort of has to accept either that she is a super valuable person who contributes meaningfully and people love her, or that she's valueless and worthless and has never done anything of value in her life ever. Like that's not a good dichotomy to be arguing on. And I think when we get to the second conversation, you'll sort of reinforce some of the things I said a bit earlier, and we'll expand on them a bit more there. Because I think that conversation and the conversation in episode 9 really flesh out and bring out what I'm trying to say here. So unless there was anything you wanted to add, we'll continue, and then when we get to there, we'll expand on this a bit more, if that's okay with you.
Sure, sounds good.
All right. Yeah. I mean, what do you think of Silco's analysis of Vi?
What was just why you're here now? What's the why again?
You don't know your limit. You don't know your limits. It's what got Vander killed. Why I'm here right now. What drove your sister off?
Yeah, I think he's absolutely right. I think we've seen that through and through. She's way too she's always been way too sure of herself.
I agree with that. Yeah, I think Silco's spot. Silco has a pretty good eye for reading people, I think. Right, he picked out Savika pretty quickly. He understands exactly what Jinx sort of needs to hear. He sort of understands the true nature of his chem barons. So I think that's sort of a quality trait of him. In this case, I think I agree. He's spot on. Vi was always super willing to fight everyone, even when it was a dumb decision. Like, don't bare hand fight people with knives. It's not smart.
Oh.
But yeah. And then and I think that's sort of implicit when Vi says, "Yeah, well, you talk too much." She's not offering like in toward like that's obvious bullshit. She's like, "Yeah, well, fuck you, dudes."
Yeah, and it's interesting because those kinds of lines that's like you want to say like, oh yeah, you get him, you sure got him there, but it's like it's interesting because like Silco is right, and what she should be doing is being like, shoot, okay, I should be more careful, and maybe I should integrate that into my dealings with this
the
guy.
Ideas. Yeah, and to be fair, I mean, it's not like she's going to have a it's not like she's going to stop in the confrontation. You know, Silco, you've made me rethink my positions. I will.
For sure.
Right.
For sure. It just it's a showing way of it's kind of like the viewer kind of like understanding like this is where it comes to like the sort of passive viewing versus like us kind of like deep diving. Now I totally wouldn't have noticed all this. At least vocalized it. Like, seeing her say that and being able to think about it is like she it's showing her kind of inner thoughts, which are, I'm not interested in my weaknesses right now in your analysis of me, and I probably
Yeah.
never will, or perhaps almost never will.
I think it's also probably her saying like, you're not perfect yourself. You talk too much, and she uses that, and then she turns and hits the thing because Caitlyn, while this conversation has happened, they've been able to formulate this plan to get out. And so part of it is, I think, he's saying, you should know your limits, girl. And her sort of counter is, well, you're cocky and you can make some dumb decisions too. So I think it's in some ways it's her trying to like, you're not so perfect yourself, but it's not a retort either. So yeah. And then the music comes in pretty well because it's going to start going a bit ham when as soon as she hits it. Yeah, and I really like the sort of the sound design of the hits. Right, we have that held note that holds tension as we come into the punch. The punch ends on a drop, then this low droning horn that turns into the sound of like this tilting water tower. So it's all integrated, super nice. And this is how Lord Sauron was defeated. The For the record, it took her less time than Frodo. At least less runtime.
This is true. Oh, less time. So
And yeah, and this scene's great because it's been building for the entire right. A less good show would have had her give Jinx the flare and then brought it back now. Is see, we did do the checkoffs done. We showed it off, and now we're paying it off. But once again, Arcane sort of goes above and beyond because we continually, every time there's been this thought of Vi or anything like that that's even remotely related to her, the this flare has shown up somewhere in the scene, usually. Right? It's in the box when they have the giant explosion thing, right? When she's trying to figure it out and it fails, and there's a giant, and she has the flashbacks. It comes out of the box. When she has the rememberings of Vi, the scenes is the scene where she gives her the flare. So this flare is constantly coming up, and it's constantly being associated with Vi in that moment to build more and more and more until we get to the scene where she's staring down the flare. And they have this nice sort of slow build where we question, is she going to use it or is she not? While this music comes in the background. We have the background, and boom, music hits.
it's a great scene.
Yeah. I was super surprised to see Woodkid show up in the music. I wasn't expecting them. I don't know if you know who they are. You might like some of their
Oh,
songs.
definitely.
But yeah, they got a couple of
Ah,
bangers. But they were like, at least when I found them, they weren't like a super big, super popular band. Oh, I was pleasantly surprised. So I like their music. But yeah, this scene is great. And once again, right? You know what this scene doesn't have anywhere in it? Dialogue, Andrew. It's all visual storytelling, my favorite.
it's a super hopeful scene. Like, visually speaking, it's like this is a huge turning point towards victory.
Yeah.
Like we think, okay, Vi might actually find her. This might actually go really well. Like no, like if you're watching this the first time, you have no idea how this is gonna play out.
Yeah. We'll talk. We'll talk about Guns for Hire at the end of it. So, I'd like to do the visuals first, if that's okay. So we
Sure.
have
Yeah,
from
I don't think we'll have a chance to finish the episode today, unfortunately.
uh,
I'll probably be out in 15.
okay. So do we want to do this? Okay. Well, we just started this scene. So do you want to do? The way I see it, we can either do this scene and the music for the scene, or we can hold off on doing the scene till next time. What do
Well,
you
I
think?
mean, do you think it'll take us a good bit more than 15 minutes? Well, definitely because this leads into like the whole firelight. Well, there's going to be a lot to talk about in their whole exchange. Yeah, I think of it. Well, maybe if you want to talk about the song, then in that case, if you have things to say about it.
I don't know. I'd rather do the whole thing as one. Like come in and do this scene, so that the song, because we're going to end up relating the song to the scene as well.
Right.
So I'd rather do the song and the scene together in the same live stream. That's cool with you.
Sure thing, no problem.
Okay, so do we want to call it here then?
All right then.
Okay, we got through. We were halfway, so we were around 20. We got through 9 minutes this time round. I think we may have started it. Oh yeah, actually we started at like 16. So we got, yeah, so about 12 minutes, and we got 12 minutes left. So next episode should be end up around the same time. Another three-parter.
POV. POV. It's 2048. Your great grandchildren are asking you. You'll be home. You say, "I'm sorry. I still have to finish the Arcane streams."
To be fair, I mean this is a finale, right? So
For sure, for sure. No, no, I just kidding. No, this is
yeah,
great. It makes me happy in a certain way because it's like, my goodness, we really could just talk and talk and talk about this show forever.
yeah. Maybe,
Awesome.
maybe
Excellent.
we
They don't
will,
make them like
Andrew.
this.
maybe by the
Maybe we
time, maybe by the
will.
time we finish this, the sequel will be out. We'll have to do it all over again. Oh, that would be kind of hilarious. Um, yeah, maybe it might be the case. But by the time we finish this, we'll have like a release date, and based on that, we may like do. They said it might be worth doing the new Cyberpunk Edge Runner thing I was telling you about. It might be worth doing that as a show, but I'm not sure yet. I'm not sure there's enough there. I think there's a lot there, but I'm not sure there's enough there. So I don't know. Maybe we may do it. We may not. I haven't decided yet. I would err on probably not. But if we need to bang out like 20 episodes before the sequel, would be worth considering. But until then, I've been Max Gang. You've been watching the only show on the internet, Xander Hall's Too Afraid to Come On. You can find me at my website, maxgang.com. It has all my links to everything. It's got short stories. It's got all my videos. It's got all my links to all my social media. And yeah, let's talk about this a little bit. Andrew, as you know, I've been working on something new, something special. Because of my love for Cyberpunk Edge Runners, I've decided to create my own tabletop RPG based off of my own Cyberpunk style tabletop RPG. Andrew's seen a bit of it, but not a whole lot. We may do like a one-shot game on this channel where we play test it. I don't know yet, but it's being worked on, and when done, it'll be released for free, so that anyone can download and play it. and the card game's still being worked on. Sea Beast is coming out one day, and we got Spirited Away coming up, and after that, the next two movies after Spirited Away are going to be The Prestige, which was Andrew's pick, and then after that we're doing my next pick, Sorry to Bother You, which I think will have some interesting things to say. I've been watching, streaming, and talking about Arcane with my dear friend Andrzej Gieralt, available at YouTube at Andrzej Gieralt Creative, which should be linked in the description. You can buy and download Air Obscure on Steam, and download his book Dragon Slayers from Amazon.com or whatever your local version of that is. Is there anything else you wanted to show?
I did at the beginning.
All right. Well,
I think we're good.
Okay. In that case, we'll see you next time. Until then, Xander Hull's massive pussy, and fuck off.